Okay, that closes out public comment. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items may be voted upon in one motion unless a trustee requests that an item be taken separately. Passage of all consent agenda items as submitted is recommended. Items may be taken out of order. Members of the public wishing to speak on a consent agenda item may speak prior to the vote. Those members of the public who are speaking on 4 or more items will be allowed a total of 10 minutes. Trustees, I have no members of the public signed up to speak on any items on the consent agenda. Trustee Young?
I'd like to approve the consent agenda, but I want to ask that 3.19 and 3.20 be taken separately. But I'd like to approve the consent agenda from a consent agenda 3.01 through 3.20 with 3.19, 3.20 taken separately.
Okay, so 3.19 and 3.20. Okay.
So it would be all the way 3.01 to 3.18, and then 3.19, 3.20.
Okay, trustees, I have a motion by Trustee Young. I'm looking for a second. Trustee Ford?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Trustees, I have a motion by Trustee Young, a second by Trustee Ford to approve consent agenda items 3.01 to 3.18. Trustees, please cast your votes. Trustee Garvey?
Aye.
That motion passes 6-0. And then I'm going to turn it over to you, Trustee Young, for a... Do you want to do them both together, or?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, do them both together. Thank you very much, trustees. I just wanted to bring up 3.19, and that is the letter of agreement between the Clark County School District and the Alexander Dawson Foundation. I went through this letter of agreement rather extensively, and for the most part, my understanding is we've been doing this for about 9 years. Had a chance to talk to some staff. My biggest concern, and certainly I want to say this from the outset, that I am appreciative of the Alexander Dawson Foundation and what they have done in the past and what they are proposing to do from June 6th, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. With the partnership between their foundation and the Clark County School District. I have about 4 major concerns that I would like to bring up for our consideration with this particular letter of agreement. First of all, I understand that we've been doing this for 9 years, but perhaps we need to reassess what we're doing, maybe not stop it, but to review and see if there's a way we can enhance what's being done for the 4 weeks that students will be involved in the summer summit and the connection meetings. And my major concern is I understand there will be 2 students from each middle school that will participate in the summer summit. And the Dawson Foundation has agreed to take care of, thank you, Dawson, for taking care of the funding for these students and funding the cost of the supplies and the food and paying the fees for the bus transportation. And they're going to select the participants from the counselor recruitment and submit an application. So the schools are going to take part of that, which I think is a good thing. The schools would do that for the 2 students. And Dawson is going to take care of the curriculum using the content from the Dawson College Bound program. And then they're going to look and hire teacher applicants and hire group leaders, which will be high school students, and assistant teachers, which will be university students for the program. So it really does have a wonderful foundation in what they will be be preparing to do for these 2 students from the 59 middle school students that we have from the Clark County School District. And herein is the concerns that I have. Let's say a typical middle school, and I'll just go on the low side, has 700 students. And they take 2 of those students for this wonderful program that will be during the summer. That's 2, let's say, out of 700. So that leaves me with 698 students that will have perhaps nothing. So I am happy for the 2 and the luck of the draw. You're going to be trying to select students, particularly, as I understand, from students where their zip code may not afford them the opportunity to participate in this kind of a program. So I'm happy about the 2. But my concern is about the other 698. And so I'm saying, as we look at what the county school district agrees to, the school district will disseminate the information and application for the Dawson College-bound opportunity to the middle school. The school district will provide the summer teaching opportunity to CCSD teachers if they want to participate. They're going to coordinate 4 school bus routes each day, so that's what we're going to do. And they're going to help coordinate bus transportation for enrichment activities throughout the year. And so if you look at it, the Exhibit A, you'll see how much that all costs. So what is my concern? Would there be anything that we can do for the, let's say if it's 700 students, for the 698? And if we've been doing this for 9 years, have we kept any data? Have we followed the 2 students who have been there, let's say, each year? And do those students come back the following year if they're in the 6th grade or 7th grade? And if they have gone on further from middle school to high school, what has happened with them and what has been the outcome of this activity? And can we look at this activity and replicate any aspect of it, maybe one component of it that we can put in our middle schools and use for all the other maybe 698, or at least maybe it's a story, maybe it's an activity, maybe it's information that the 2 students maybe could come back and share, maybe as a student representative, and share that and maybe have some kind of information that the other students can glean from that. My concern is that we typically do this from time to time. We bring in and do some wonderful things for 2, but we forget about the others. And I'm just a little concerned that we take some of this process and look at what we as a school district can do to enhance the educational program for the others that will not have an opportunity to participate. And my final comment is that we are looking at our Focus 2024, and we now have Dr. Barton, who is now a part of our career college readiness kind of program. So I would love to see some kind of a partnership of sorts with what's happening here, and what part of what's happening here for the 4 weeks can we replicate this program? We have such a large district with lots of opportunities for students, and if we've been doing it for 9 years, can we model from this program and perhaps do a couple of these summer, what we call summer college readiness and summer Dawson College bound part of the program that they are set up with this and then the year-long mentoring program for middle school students and long-term goals for the college readiness. I'm just seeing that if we can make this a little bit more inclusive, a little bit more with equity, and I understand we are doing a lot more with the diversity piece of looking at the ethnic distribution of the students that participate in this program, that it reflects the ethnic distribution of our district. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Trustee Young. I'm going to have Superintendent Jara
Yes,
comment on some of those.
thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Trustee Young, you bring up great points. Some of the conversations we had in cabinet around, especially around the diversity in the students and how they're selected. And so we'll certainly work with this year, look at staff, with staff to see what their program is. But please understand that with our summer programming is really around credit recovery and remediation. Unfortunately, due to the budget challenges that we face and priorities, we do have limited sites across the valley, and it's really for more credit recovery and students recovering some of the credits, and so we certainly is something that we will continue to study and look at, so then we can provide opportunities for more students, especially in the middle school as they progress and get ready for high school. Great points.
So just to clarify, these students are not selected yet, right? This is...
Yes, they are.
They are
Yes.
selected. Okay.
And just to follow up,
Trustee Young?
and I do understand that our programs have always been about trying to recover credits and get students caught up and all of that. But this program is a little bit different. It is not doing that.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing. I don't think if students are out close to 11 weeks or not quite 12 weeks, sometimes they don't need to be picking up credits, but they need to be kind of an enhancement, enrichment, what this program is about. And probably I know more than most, and most of you know more than others. We don't have the money, of course, to even begin to replicate anything like this. But I think until you can articulate it and at least put it out there that this is a need, and yet a need that's being fulfilled for some students, I think we have to begin to articulate it and say what our concerns are.
Thank you, Trustee Young.
Okay.
Trustee Cepeda?
Well, I was just going to motion to approve, 3.19 and 3.2 for you. Did you talk about 3.2?
No, I haven't talked about 3.2.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to put that motion out there to approve both of those. And I think I also just want to add that I guess as a board, I don't see, while I appreciate the points of encouraging summer programs that encourage leadership and being an amazing citizen, I also don't think it's it's not in our purview to be, to ask for some of these programming. I think it's definitely something we could ask for evaluations of or to encourage. So I guess I'm just a little concerned about our role in this. I think as a practitioner, that's totally, a different hat I wear. And I think, yes, we need these leadership programs. I just don't think it's necessarily our purview here. So I guess I just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you, Trustee Cepeda. Trustee Ford, do you want to second that motion for conversation, and then we can keep talking about, we can go on to 3.2?
I was going to make a comment, and then I think that Linda...
Okay, I just need a second to continue the conversation.
Oh, yes, I second that.
Okay.
Did you want to continue the conversation?
And then Trustee Ford, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I appreciate you bringing this up. And although it isn't our purview to necessarily get in the weeds with this and change how it operates, this was brought up from the consent agenda, which we usually take out all at once. And I think that we should start doing this kind of thing and pulling these out and talking about it, because it isn't just us. We get briefed on a lot of the things that are in the consent agenda, and we have a lot of questions, but there's a large following of community members, parents, even students who want to know even that these things exist, and they don't know how to weed through the agenda like we do to know what's really going on, what we're spending money on, and even what opportunities are available for their kids as well. So I appreciate that you do bring this up. Again, even me as a trustee, I read through everything, because sometimes, I just learned a lot just from this back and forth conversation right here about it. So I do think that the board should get in the habit of, not necessarily trying to make changes to how it works, but pulling it out and giving some opinions as to how we can do it better or more effectively in the future. Thank you, Trustee Ford. Before I go on, I just want to point out that these
things are actually about programs and they are not under the control of the board. So while yes, you may pull these out and comment on it, it's probably really important for you to also to educate the public about what your role is as a board member so that they have realistic expectations of what you can and cannot do. So we can have that conversation under 4.01 though, because that's a lot of that is related to programming. Trustee Young?
Okay, and thank you for that. But see, as trustees, this is what typically happens. People tend to think that we just rubber stamp, we just kind of go along to get along. And we have to look at partnerships. We have to look at when people put in letters of agreement. No, we're not supposed to maybe get into the actual program, but we need to find out how these things are working and what can we do better and what can we emulate. We should not just go along to get along. And that's what they see us doing most of the time up here. Just take all of the consent agenda, and I'm not trying to get into a thing with the Dawson Foundation. I think it's a great thing. But if we've been doing something for 9 years, that's our role, is to look at what we're doing and see if we can do it better. See if we can take this information and make sure more students are included, and how do we go about doing that. So I don't necessarily agree that this is not something we should be involved in. I think we should be involved in anything we vote on. If we vote on it, and even though I've heard it said, well, it's just a perfunctory kind of thing, and this may be a contract, and you've already agreed to the contract, and you'll be a breach if you don't do something. I think we still have to ask about things, and we have to make sure we represent our constituents and those people who voted for us and who ask us to be their voice. That's why we sit here. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Trustee Cepeda?
I think if we were to go through each individual program that involves our students, we'd be here for ages. I run a youth program myself. I take in 100 CCSD students. We spend a week at UNLV. We build leadership and all these skills and soft skills, professional development. But again, if we were to dissect every single program, we would be here forever. If anything, I would maybe suggest if there was a way we could get some sort of briefing on all the different summer programs there might be. Maybe we could, take this in a big chunk if we wanted to have this conversation. But again, if we were to go through every single program, we'd be here forever.
Thank you, Trustee Cepeda. Trustee Young, did you want to touch on 3.20? We have a second of... Okay.
Thank you. I think what I wanted to do just on this particular part of programming, and sometimes what we do when we bring these things up, and we don't do that many, we do maybe one or two a meeting. If we do that, we basically go through the consent. And for the most part, if one of us bring up something, it's a concern, just for the public to know and for us to know of how we can improve what we're doing. So I kind of disagree with that comment, but that's okay. You have your comment, and that's what this is all good what it's all good about. So thank you. But thank you for bringing that up, because there are other people who feel that way. Now, on this particular one, on the Title VI Indian Education Program, I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to what Joe Caruso and Sherry, her last name is a different, what? Otherwalds. Okay, I was going to call it a different name. They're doing a wonderful job here with our Title VI Indian Education Program. I only have one comment, and I've said this to Mr. Caruso. The amount for the $126,898. If we get those numbers a little better, a little tighter, I think we can move that amount up a lot more. And the program that, particularly for American Indian, Alaska Native students throughout the school district, for tutoring, reading, math, and science for these eligible students, and the cultural awareness activity, and the college preparation activities, and the parent committee. I think if we can do a little bit more in the summer to identify those students, these students are, the monies are based on the number of students we have. And this particular amount has been the same amount we've had almost for 15 years. And the school district has grown in population, and this amount has not. So as we move forward, I think I've already mentioned that to Mr. Caruso and Cheryl as well, that let's see if we can do a little bit better of identifying these students and thereby getting them involved in much more educational support from the school district and from the American Indian Alaska Native community. So thank you. I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you for your hard work, by the way. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Okay, with that, trustees, I have a motion by Trustee Cepeda and a second by Trustee Ford to adopt agenda items 3.19 and 3.20. Trustees, please cast your votes. Trustee Garvey?
Aye.
That motion passes 6-0. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item. Actually, Trustee Cavazos is going to read the warrants.
Thank you, Madam President. Ratified warrants is listed in the bills payable transmittal and board memorandum number 19-18-19 and the total amount of $106,962,274.14.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 4.01, repeal of the Clark County School District Board of Trustees Governance Policy E-2, Student Learning. So, when we went through the policy review, there were a lot of things that referenced stuff that we don't do anymore. And one of them were strategic imperatives, academic, like all of the language in here are things that are being stricken because we are now going to follow the strategic plan. So every policy that we have where these terms were used, we actually just left it broad and said that we will always be operating under a strategic plan versus naming the plan or spelling anything out like this, so we don't have to change the policy. This might also be a really good time to talk about the difference between programmatic changes or initiatives and the role of the board, which is a governance role. So there's a difference between asking for accountability and return on investment and fiscal responsibility and reviewing things operationally. There's also, when we get briefed, the ability of a trustee to give feedback based on what kind of expertise they have in different arenas. So the conversation that we just had, where we talked a lot about specifically about a program and how we wanted to direct that program or what we wanted that to look like. The role of the board is to actually set a broad focus on what the superintendent is going to be doing, and his job is to actually map out what that looks like, how those resources are allocated, and then our review of his work is through his evaluation process on whether or not he meets those goals. So I know we've had lots of different board retreats. We've had the Council of Great City Schools come in. They've talked about the difference between a functional and a dysfunctional board. So it's not that I am trying to prevent you from having an opinion. It's that it's very clearly outlined in our governance structure on what we should and should not be doing. So I'd be happy to have that conversation, continue that conversation though. Trustee Young?
Thank you for that comment. And I think as a board, sometimes what we reflect will be the comments and concerns of people who talk to us about programs or ask us about why things are going the way they're going. And certainly we're not there to tell the superintendent how to do his job, but we also are there to act as a community conduit. What are people saying? Because you lead through people. You lead through communities, and people are not going to always be here at meetings to give their opinion about what's working and what's not working. So if we don't listen to our constituents, and many of our teachers are our constituents, and many of our staff, support staff, are our constituents and administrators. And if we don't work to make sure everyone feels included and at least give some feedback to the superintendent as he and his staff are doing their job, because there are many people out there that will not speak up. They are terrified out there. They are feeling that if they speak up, they'll lose their jobs. They feel if they say anything about what's happening in the schools or their programs, that they will be retaliated against. There's a lot of that, and the only people they have to try to give some feedback to will be us. And many have come to me and said some things about much of what I've just said just a few minutes ago, and my concern or my comment is to put some of that out there so that there is a little bit of a discussion, and so that there is some feedback. Our governance structure is supposed to be informed oversight. We're not supposed to do it, and trust me, I do not have the inclination or the need to do anybody's program. I've done a bunch of programs out there, and it's a ton of work. But for us to remain silent, you know that old statement from Dr. King, it says that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And when someone says, let's just gross over this, don't say anything, you're getting in the weeds, I don't totally agree with that. I do agree with when you start going in and managing programs, when you start saying how the program has to be. But for you to give some feedback or some information about a program, for me, I feel that's entirely appropriate.
Inappropriate.
So that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Trustee Ford?
Yeah, thank you for kind of bringing up this conversation again, because a lot of the people that come to these meetings or watch don't necessarily go to our board retreats, and we don't even make them public or anything, but we've probably had like 20 hours, or like, we don't like live stream them, is what I mean, or like record them or anything. But we've probably had like 20 hours of conversation about this since I've been on the board, and I've had a lot of questions, and I have had the answers over and over. I understand as we do it according to our governance policy, but there are a lot of school boards that have different governance policies than we do, and I think that what's being said as to how we do things or how we're supposed to is just based on what we've done in the past, not necessarily what is fully within the scope of what we can do. And obviously, I trust the superintendent. I think, it's everything in here I believe is really good. I support it. But if the board wanted to, we could say no to all of this. I mean, if we said, vote no, and then what happens? None of it gets done. So we don't just have a yes or no vote. If we have questions about it, we should be able to ask them. And because our job is policy, it does make sense to say, oh, here's something that we're doing currently. How could we make a policy maybe to start emulating things that we do and partnerships that we create, or a policy to start getting data from it that we can look and manage and make better decisions in the future. So I guess it is, I don't think there's a yes or no or black or white answer to it, but I definitely think that we do have more, or we should be having more say as to voicing our opinions about what's in the consent agenda, not necessarily the operations of the things in there. But like what Trustee Young brought up about that partnership, I appreciated it, and we don't have to necessarily go through piece by piece, but if there is something that sticks out, I don't want to feel like I'm not supposed to bring it up because it's right here on the agenda and my name's on that wall and my name's on this document. So I should be able to talk about it, have questions about it, or give informed insight like Dr. Young said.
Thank you, Trustee Ford. Could you Thank you. So just want to clarify, this isn't things that we've done in the past. This is actually the agreed upon parameters that the board has agreed upon multiple times over 20 to 30 hours of training. So it's not that we're just doing things as they've always been done. In fact, we were under a totally different governance model when I first came on. So we are just now starting to get to a point where we are trying to do this to fidelity. We're not quite there, but I don't think that, yes, you can ask questions, of course, that's your right to ask questions, but to say that we need to actually go through each one of these items on the consent agenda, I think is a little bit well, the comment was that we need to do this more often. The reason these are on the consent agenda is because they're operational and they're actually under the control of the superintendent. So that's why they are on the consent agenda. But we will be talking about how things are placed on the agenda sometime in the future. Trustee Cepeda?
Yep. For me, it's about efficiency. Again, we're such we're a large district. Again, like you mentioned, I guess it's hard for me to piece apart the fact that we're not in the operational piece. We're in the making sure that the big picture things are being taken care of, and it takes away from our time. I mean, we've been on this for about 20, 30 minutes. It just takes away from our efficiency. So I guess that's my point. It takes away from our efficiency.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos?
I think that,
Before you go on,
Sure,
Trustee
go ahead.
Wright, are you on the line?
This is Trustee Garvey, if I could be put in the queue. And
Yes.
Trustee Wright is here. I am listening, yes.
Okay, so Trustee Cavazos is going to go, and then I'm going to go to Trustee Garvey because she hasn't had a turn yet. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. I think that what we're talking about here, everybody has good points, and I definitely think that we should be able to ask questions. We're here for a reason. We're representing our constituents. One of the big challenges for me coming on this board is that I'm a very hands-on person, but I also am somebody that, having served on other boards and also having to deal with confidentiality and respecting the roles of different people as a therapist and also as a teacher, is that learning how to serve our constituents and still, I don't know, as my mom would have put it, you don't always have to color, within the lines. You can step outside of the box, but something that always sticks in my mind is the best interest of the child. Working for family court for a long time, writing a lot of reports, we are here for the best interests of our students. So when we have a briefing, when we are briefed on all of these different items, we have a chance to ask questions. Sometimes it's not much time, but we do have that opportunity. So yes, I think that we should be able to bring things up, but I think that we need to use professional discretion. As as my colleagues have brought up, we're able to ask those questions, but do we need to spend 30 minutes on something instead of talking about something that has to do with student achievement and narrowing the gaps and going on to what is really important, which are our students. So I think that we need to realize what our roles are without, we're not giving up anything. We're just operating within the most efficient model where we'll get things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Garvey?
Well, thank you. So I guess first I need a point of clarification. Are we officially on 4.01, the repeal of E2?
We are on 4.01, and
So
could you turn that up just a little bit so we can hear Trustee Garvey? Just to clarify, Trustee Garvey, we're on 4.01. We're talking about repealing this, and we're talking about whether or not the board has any purview over programming.
Oh, okay, because I was wondering how any control over programming actually is incorporated into the repeal of this particular policy, E2. My question was going to be, so what will be replacing any kind of policy or a new E2 on student learning? I totally understand and agree that we need to have broader language that will incorporate anything from, strategic imperatives and and Pledge of Achievement to, Focus 2024. I agree with that. I do think, though, that it would be good for the community to know at least what is the vision and the expectation and how we're going to evaluate the superintendent as it applies to student learning. So I would be interested to know when that probably will be coming back, if that is the plan. With the other piece, I think, too, we need to be careful when it comes to programming, but there are times when you need to ask questions as to, is it efficient? And because there may be programs that are utilized and cost a lot of resources that don't really get reflected in perhaps the evaluation data points that we've asked of the superintendent.
Thank you, Trustee Garvey. So just to clarify, this language is being removed, but a lot of these things are already in other policies. They're just a recap, and then it's kind of a strange way that it's set up. So the vision is actually somewhere else, and then there is another governance policy that covers evaluation specifically.
So we will have all of these elements, but throughout different other sections, correct?
Right. Nothing is being, just this, the only thing that's in here, it really is just this language, and then has the strategic imperatives, but we actually replaced that language throughout all of our policies to say that we're operating under the strategic plan.
Great. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Young?
And I'm just going to make this brief. I think when we talk about our vision statement, when we talk about our strategic imperative, when we talk about moving these areas around and moving them into other aspects of our strategic plan, most of the community or even people that hear us or maybe follow what we say typically don't follow what we do. They really don't. And often are not aware unless we bring some things up that's relatable to their lives and to their children. It just kind of glosses over. And when this concept of we shouldn't ask questions, or that this is programming, and this, to me, I don't know who brought this up about programming because it wasn't me. It puts us all in a position of keeping people out, and we're typically seen as a board that's not friendly or user-friendly or approachable. And we've got to change that perception. There's a whole concept, or at least feeling out there, that the trustees are remote, not so much connected to them and their families, and what this all means. And we talk in educational needs. We talk in jargon that people can't relate to, and we've got to make sure we're connected. That's why we're sitting up here on the board, to be a conduit to the people that we represent in our districts. And so I will do that and be respectful to the process, but if there is a concern or a comment that I need to bring up, I will do that in the interest of good communication to our constituents and good communication to the staff and the community we all serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Trustee Cavazos?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for 4.01, repeal of the Clark County School District Board of Trustees Governance Policy E2, Student Learning.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Cepeda?
I second.
Thank you. Trustee Ford? Could you also clear these names?
Yes, I just wanted to make a last comment, and then I'm ready to move on. But we actually it's been brought up a couple times that we're spending too much time talking about the program, and that if we took it item by item, it would be here all day. We actually spent about 6 minutes talking about that item and in the context of how we could start thinking a little bit better about it and how it can help more students, which is our job to ensure student success. And then we spent about 30 minutes talking about why we can't talk about that 6-minute portion. So I just wanted to make sure it wasn't 40 minutes on this topic.
Thank you, Trustee Ford. Trustee Wright, did you have anything before you vote?
No.
Thank you. Trustees, I have a motion by Trustee Cavazos and a second by Trustee Cepeda. Trustees, please cast your votes. Trustee Wright? Trustee?
Aye.
So that was Trustee Garvey?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Noting that we had no members of the public sign up to speak on that. Okay, we're going to move